All right, what is up, folks? Welcome back to another episode of Lifting, Running, and Out Here Living with your favorite coaches, Kelly,
Hello.
Hey, and JK. That is me. All right, we are kicking off episode number 45. So
Yep.
let's go ahead and jump right into things with updates. So Kelly, what's going on? What's going on in your neck of the woods?
So last time I talked about how I was starting my new lifting program, the 531, and then some accessory work.
Getting
Um,
checked.
yeah, that is the goal. Well, the goal is to get stronger, which sometimes they go together, sometimes not. But it's funny because immediately after we recorded 2 weeks ago on a Sunday, the next day, Monday, I got sick, and I was sick all week. But it sounds bad. It was bad for running. I didn't run the entire week, but like lifting was fine. I think because it wasn't a continual stress, it's like little bouts of stress. And it was like a sinus infection thing, so I was mostly just congested. And with lifting, I could have my little box of tissues and just in between sets blow my nose as much as I needed.
Oh my gosh.
And
This was at home,
yeah,
right?
yeah, I was at
Oh,
home.
Okay.
I
Gotcha.
did not leave my house much that week at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Clearly
I
better
wanted to
now,
start
though.
my program. Yeah, I'm better now, thank God.
Cool.
This week was normal. Um, so yeah, that was an interesting first week of doing the program, but I like it so far. Naively, I thought when looking at the weights, I was like, these are not going to be that bad. Like, they're not going to be that heavy. And for the listeners who didn't listen to last episode, the program, it's 531. It's called that because the first week you do 3x5 reps. Second week is 3x3 reps, and then 3x531 the third week, and then a deload. And then the last set, like the reps are the minimum, and then you go until failure, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So like the first two sets are fine. And I'm like, oh, this is great. And then I get to the last set every single time. Every compound movement, it annihilates me. Yeah. So it was good that I didn't have running while I was sick because I don't think I physically could. My first run back was last Sunday. So it felt bad because I was like on the tail end of being sick.
Mm-hmm.
And my Saturday lift, I combined the squat and overhead press day.
Oh,
And
that's right. You
with,
do. Yeah.
yeah. And as we've talked about before, I hate squats. So I've never really dedicated a lot of time to squats and like doing substantial weight with squats or substantial reps. And then I texted you this. One of the accessory movements is 5x15 reverse lunges. When I tell you I was dead last Sunday, I can't remember the last time a run felt that bad.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
can only imagine. I mean, 531 is a straight up strength work towards 1 rep max program. So
Yeah.
that
Well, it's really
beats you
the
down.
5 sets afterwards is what murders me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
yeah. Props to you on that. Are you adjusting? Have you noticed any adjustments that you're making to your nutrition as you're going through this particular program? I just thought about that as you're talking about some of the after effects that you're feeling and then feeling that carryover effect. I totally look like I'm just here for the party with my red salad.
It's hard to say because the first week
Being sick.
yeah, it's like nutrition's always weird.
Yeah.
Or atypical, I should say.
Right. Well, for some of us.
I'll reflect as I go along now
Okay.
because I haven't been paying attention.
Yeah. Okay.
I do focus on protein, but that's normal.
Yeah.
Kind of like the study we talked about last time.
I guess I'm more
And like
curious about your hunger signals. Like if you
well, I woke up
noticed
at
that.
3 a.m. today and I was hungry.
Oh, same.
But this week I have started back running. So it's like kind of funny because it's like second week of the lifting. So I'm more adjusted to that. And with my Saturday, I decided to go heavier on the reverse lunges and do 8 reps each instead of 15. Partially because my PT says I need to strengthen and fatigue my hips more because they are weak.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So she was like, I'd rather you go heavier than do 15, which is fine by me because I hate doing 15.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm still debating adding something to the deadlift day because it's deadlifts, good mornings, hanging leg raises. So I might add in like a lunge movement, some kind of squat to make it a little less all hinges.
Can I throw out an idea
Yeah.
that you can absolutely reject, which is fine with me?
Yeah.
Cossacks squats or Cossack lunges. So some lateral movement.
Oh, yeah, the lateral.
Yeah, because as I think about it, especially with you talking about your PT mentioning some hip focus.
Yeah, she gave me like the monster walks, which I do for my warm up every run,
Uh-huh.
which is nice. But yeah, she gave me, I'll probably incorporate some of the exercises she gave me. She gave me those reverse clamshells,
Mm-hmm.
side planks with abduction. I hate those
Yeah.
with a burning
Yeah,
passion.
those are saucy.
They're so hard,
Yeah.
so fatiguing. Um, she gave me a plank with a leg lift and then a dead bug unilateral hold on the same side.
Okay.
I might add in some more stuff too. Oh, I've been adding in like pogo hops as part of my warm-ups too to get
Oh,
some plyometrics
yeah, some
for
plyometric work.
the running now that my heel doesn't hurt every single day, which
Sounds
is
like a lot of
exciting.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah, so things are going well. I'm excited. I like it. It is, we're going to talk about this more later. It's very challenging for me to get my running in now
Yeah.
since I prioritize the lifting. So I
Mm,
do it in the morning.
okay.
But along with
You
that,
do what in the morning?
lifting,
The lifting. Okay. Gotcha.
because the lifting is most important to me right now.
Yeah. Good call.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I started taking creatine.
Okay. Anything to
So,
share with that as of right now?
nope.
What
uh,
what was behind that decision?
you know, I was going through some old supplements and I had creatine, and then I was like, this expired in like 2021. So I should get rid of this.
Oh.
But I was like, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, PSA to everyone, go through your old supplements. I had some pre-workout that was really old that had solidified. It was really disgusting.
Oh yeah, that could get pretty.
But
I've actually that's wild because I came across some this morning too. It
yeah.
definitely like a little chunky.
Yeah. Yeah, mine changed color and was completely solid, and I was like, "All right."
Yeah,
I don't use pre-workout anyway, though. We all know I drink coffee, and that's my
that's your pre-workout,
pre-workout.
your stimulant.
Um, yeah. Well, I've dabbled in creatine before, but I've
Hmm.
never really taken it consistently. And I think with the strength focus, and obviously there's more coming out that is good for endurance as well. But the one thing I've noticed is I had to put a daily reminder in my phone because I cannot remember to take it every day. I can remember to
Mm.
take it on lifting days. Like in my mind, it makes sense.
Yeah,
Lift, take my creatine. But obviously, I'm not lifting every day. And it hasn't quite run, take creatine doesn't quite go together yet in my mind. And then obviously, rest day. I'm not doing either of those. So, utilizing my little, smart computer that I carry around.
yeah. Have you considered putting it in your coffee?
Mm-mm. I mean, I have considered it, but I am afraid it's going to ruin my coffee, even though it is unflavored.
Right.
Right now, I just put it in water and drink it, and it's like fine.
Yeah, you do like do you do like 3 to 5 milligrams or something like that?
I do whatever the thing tells
The
me.
little scoop. Or
Yeah, I do a little scoop.
did you go through a loading phase?
No.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. Well, there's so what was I about to ask? I think it's worth a shot just to pop it into the caffeine or the coffee, which is
Yeah.
caffeine, but the coffee because it's something it's the whole like pairing the habits together. It's something that you already
Stacking. Yeah.
yeah, so it's something that you already do. The only thing is though, I did come across within the last couple of weeks some research that questions that basically talks about the negative effects, like basically something with caffeine having a negative effect on the effectiveness of creatine or vice versa. Yeah. I can't,
Huh.
yeah, I don't totally remember what it was. And I know that I've just come across more than one or two like study summaries that have
Hmm.
questioned if possibly one affects the other. Like caffeine can decrease the effect of creatine, which is interesting
Interesting.
because creatine works based on saturation.
Mhm.
So one of the misconceptions that I've heard from people before is they are thinking that creatine, the effects of creatine is something that they're going to be able to notice like they would a pre-workout or something like that. And that's not the
Mm.
way that creatine works. It's a, like I said, it's a saturation process. So that's one of the reasons why sometimes you'll come across like the recommendation of doing the loading phase, which I don't recommend the loading phase, because the loading phase is where I think you like take quadruple or triple the amount
Whoa.
for like just for the first however many days I think it
Yeah.
is, basically to speed up the saturation process. So you basically like overload.
Mm.
And though that's also where a good amount of the concern around bloating comes into play.
Okay.
Yeah, so when you start like pulling on the thread of, well, I've heard
Yeah.
that it causes bloating, then the origin of that concern typically, like from the common thread, is people who were going through the loading phase and then
Huh.
having digestion issues and things like that. And it's kind of like with anything, if you triple the dose to begin with, then yeah, it's probably
Yeah.
going to happen.
Yeah, that
So
makes sense.
yeah, I don't know. I was just throwing out the idea to stack it with something you're already doing. So
Yeah. I mean, the notification works
okay.
for my brain.
Well,
So,
for the listener out
yeah,
there.
I know it doesn't work for everyone.
Yeah.
So that is a good call out. But yeah,
Cool.
that's about it.
Wonderful.
Yeah. What
Well,
about you?
I'm still taking creatine. Started including it in my protein shakes many years ago, and have
Nice.
continued. So yeah, that's my update now. Uh, just a couple updates. Myself and another coach, my friend Coach Anita, are getting ready to wrap up a program that we were doing called the Reset. So it's something that we started at the beginning of December, and it was focused on three specific, just very foundational habits, like eat well, sleep enough, and exercise regularly. Like that was our thing, the ESE. So eat well, sleep enough, exercise regularly. We had a handful of people who joined the program, been consistent with doing, we had like a group coaching call every other week, also check-ins every other week. And just one of the cool things that I really liked doing was we did these 10-minute talks. So basically each week, both her and I separately would just do these 10-minute videos just on different topics, whether it was something that was related specifically to fitness or nutrition, or just talking about things like, I know Anita did a really good one around handling food pushers. We talked about
Oh,
motivation, which I know we're going to be talking about today. Just a lot of different things. So it's been a cool process to go through basically like this 9 weeks during the time of the year where it can be super easy to just, for lack of a better way to put it, fall off track and go crazy. It's been
yeah.
cool. Like the folks who've consistently shown up at least like a couple of times, 3, 4 times throughout that 9 week period inside the community have reported back like some really, really, really good results. And yeah, that's been really cool. So I am thinking we are likely going to do something like that again in the future. I don't know what the time frame is going to look like or anything like that. And I do think that there's just continues to be a lot of value in being able to focus on basic foundational habits, like kind of reset and understand, okay, where am I right now? And
Yeah.
that seems to be something that hopefully is pretty helpful, because there's a couple of folks that are like, okay, I don't know, like now I'm ready to like be super duper specific about what I want to do, versus they would go into the new year and right around, January ish, they'd set some
Mhm.
sort of a target, but they didn't know like exactly where they were shooting from. And so now,
Oh.
yeah, so that's been kind of the thing. And that was the whole idea, like help you get a better understanding of, okay, you can reach for a goal, you can set a specific target that you want to hit. Do you know like where you're aiming from though? Because people
Yeah.
talk so much about like, be specific about the target that you want to hit. And the analogy that I use is, it's like calling an Uber and you're
Mhm.
telling them, you're kind of trying to describe where they need to pick you up, but you can't totally describe it because you're not totally sure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like your
Yeah.
location services are just slightly off. And that was one of the inspirations for coming up with this whole concept, because as I would do intake calls with people, trying to describe just exactly where they were with their current habits was
Mhm.
like all over the place. And they would even say, like, I just did a call with somebody last week, and I asked him to share with me some of the aspects of what it looks like when they get enough sleep. It's like, so when you get
Mm.
enough sleep, like what does that look like? Like what's your wind down routine, that sort of a thing. And I'm like, just keep it basic. I'm not talking about you have to like, sun your butthole or anything. Like what's the basics? Sorry. My friend Jimmy, sorry, came up. I should have given you a warning that that was going to happen, because
Yeah,
that's
that was very unexpected.
well, maybe I'll send you. Well, no, you don't really do much on Instagram anymore. But my friend Jimmy
You can
Nutrition.
send it to
All
me.
right, if anybody's ever, it's kind of vulgar, but if anybody is on Instagram, follow my friend Jimmy Nutrition. He goes by Jimmy Nutrition, Jim Hallinan, and he's someone that I know personally. But
Uh-huh.
he made this reel one time making fun of like the wake up routine and the bedtime routine and whatnot. And one of the things he's
Oh.
like, one of the keys to my success is I sun my butthole for 5 minutes. So it's like, oh my gosh, that's going to be wild if the thing that makes up the little collage or the little reel decides to
Yeah.
pick up that as the part that it wants to put for our show recap. But anyways,
I have control over that,
okay,
so.
perfect. Yeah, probably not one we want to keep in there. But anyways, in having the conversation with this person, as I was asking them to kind of share with me some aspects of what it means to them to sleep enough, they were talking for a couple of minutes, and then they go, I I kind of feel like I kind of feel like I'm just all over the place. And I'm like, well, you are all over the place because you're all over the place. Like
Yeah.
that's the whole point. So
Yeah.
the idea, and this is really what we held on to with this program, was when people came in, we asked them to describe, what does it mean to you to eat well? What does it mean to sleep enough? What does it mean to exercise regularly for you right now?
Mhm.
And then as we're exiting out, we're asking them like where they are with their confidence level and now being able to describe that clearly. So that's been like a big part of what we've been up to. So that's one update, because that's been very front of mind. And then the other thing, definitely got to give a shout out to my son Mace. So he's got a podcast
Mm.
called Kids Talk Sports, and he just released episode 99 last week. So this week he should hit episode
Wow.
yeah, he should hit episode 100 this week. So we're actually he's
Is
going
it
to
gonna
be
be a
able.
Super Bowl
What's that?
episode?
I
Is it gonna be about the Super Bowl?
Kelly, I have no idea. I have no idea. Sometimes I really don't know.
Mm.
I really don't know. It's
Okay.
it's amazing sometimes. But yeah, because sometimes I'm talking to people and you know they they're aware that he's got a podcast or something like that, or they'll ask like, "Hey, is he still doing that?" I'm like, "Yep, For the most part, he's not missed a
Yeah.
week. He took a break during the summer for a while, and then purposely like came back, and uh, it's like, yeah, he's consistent, and also he's still your 12-year-old kid who,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll do it Tuesday. Then Tuesday comes, and like, yeah, I'll do it Wednesday. Nah, I'll do it Friday. Nah, I don't really feel like, let's do it Saturday. I'm just like, oh my Lord. So yeah. But yeah, regardless though, he's gonna hit episode 100, and as a little incentive for him, we created just a Kids Talk Sports hoodie. So he'll
Mm.
be able to sell those hoodies when he hits episode 100, and he gets to keep pretty much the majority of the profit. It's not a
Oh,
lot.
nice.
It's not a lot, but
I know,
he
I've
gets,
sold hoodies.
yeah, yeah, especially because they're print on demand, and
Yes.
we're rolling the shipping into the price, and we're only charging like 30 to 35 bucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, $1 from each hoodie is going into the hosting costs for like the website and all that stuff, because we're going to use the Feed
Oh,
Your Habits
gotcha.
website
Okay.
to sell them.
Cool.
But just try to teach him a little bit about margin and overhead and all that stuff. But he'll make a few bucks off of
Mhm.
each one. Yeah, you totally know. You're not getting rich off of Gildan hoodies. It's not happening.
No.
Nope.
Unless you wanna charge, like, $50 and then, like, who's buying a $50 hoodie? That's, like
Well, that's how much. Yeah, that's how much our Feed Your Habits hoodies are. They're actually
really?
60. Yeah, because we went with
Are
Champion.
they really nice?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the champ.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I did
That
get.
makes sense.
Yeah, I did get. I had texted the other guys that are co-owners in the company, and I had been like, man, we got Mace's sample, and I'm not gonna lie, like it's not bad. Like this thing's actually kind
Yeah.
of comfortable. And they texted me back, and they were like, bro, you can't. Yeah, like they're not bad. It's just the Champion hoodies are a whole different
Yeah.
type of. But that's especially once you're rolling the shipping into the cost of it and not wanting to charge
Yeah.
people extra. Shipping fees are crazy these days. And that's
Mhm.
pre knowing for sure what's going to happen with tariffs from wherever. Like that's pre that. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So anyways, those are the main things going on. Got the reset program
Mhm.
wrapping up, and then really pumped for Mace to hit episode 100. Should be, it
Nice.
actually may be right around the same time this episode comes out. So,
Oh, sweet.
yeah. All right. So those are
Good
my
job, Mace.
updates. Yeah. Shout out Mace. All
Yeah,
right. Cool.
that's really impressive. Um, all right. Well, our topic for today, we've talked about, did we dedicate a whole episode? I think we did.
I
We're
think we
going to do
did.
it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was like, I want to say it was our first winter recording.
Might
So,
have
like,
been.
over a year ago.
Might have been. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was one of our very first. Anyway, we're going to talk about motivation during winter, your non-competitive season, a maintenance period, whatever time it may be for you. Obviously, right now we're all in winter, so that's top of mind. Um, and I've just seen this with a lot of athletes with their running. Obviously, I said for me, motivation with running is hard right now because I'm prioritizing something else, and managing being tired from the thing that matters more. So we just want to talk a bit about that.
Yeah. Well, do you want to start with maybe kind of some of the common themes that you hear about this or scenarios? I don't know.
Yeah. So obviously I work with runners, and when you're running, you either run outside or on a treadmill. A lot of people hate the treadmill. So, which makes this time of year really hard.
Yeah.
Unless you live in, the South or California, Southern California, where the weather does not turn quite as much, although the South has been getting some snow, so who
Yeah.
knows anymore.
True.
Um, but yeah, I've seen a lot, like the cold and snow has been deterring folks, especially in Colorado. We've had, some really cold weeks the past 6 weeks or so. And obviously there's less daylight. So the time when you can run when it's warmer, there's less of that time. And a lot of people just don't have access to a treadmill, don't want to run on a treadmill. So that's like the main thing I see is just like, I don't want to run this time of year, which is very challenging if someone has a spring goal.
So what do you do in situations like that with clients? Like, what are some general things that you do?
Well, I mean,
Just tell them suck it
I
up.
feel like no, I am way too nice, to be honest.
Mm,
I I need to be firmer, but I find it's hard to find the line between we've talked about like the tough love coaching before. I find it
right.
hard to be like, you need to just get up and go. If it's dark and cold, then it's dark and cold, like dress warmer, wear lights. If you feel unsafe, that's a completely different discussion. But if it's just
Hmm.
like if it's miserable outside, that's like something we can conquer. Um, but there have been points where I'm just like, I don't know if I recommend we do this race at this point because of the training hasn't been there. And that's
Mm,
really hard. I really hate having to I've shifted not to being like, you shouldn't do this race because it's not
yeah.
my decision at the end of the day.
Uh-huh.
I shifted to be like, I don't recommend you do this at this point based on your training. 9 times out of 10, they still do it. But at least I feel like I've said my piece. Like,
Yeah.
your training isn't where I would like it to be for the goal that you have. Um, and yeah, most of the time, it depends on the athlete. Some of the times they're fine. Like I've worked with some younger athletes who they can kind of get through anything at their
Yeah.
age, you know?
And
We've
get
all
away
been
with
there.
it. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, 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 but then there's definitely some other ones where, like, they just had the race didn't feel that great, which I'm like, "That is a product of what you didn't do
Yeah,
over the past 5 months."
that
Yeah.
absolutely makes sense. Yeah, I could see
Yeah.
that. Do I know the question makes sense in my head and I'm not sure quite how to frame it. So what I'm thinking is, okay, let's say you have a plan that you've put together for someone,
Yeah.
and they are what's an average number of weeks out for, say, like a spring race that you start doing dedicated training for that race?
It definitely depends on the distance,
Okay, so let's say a
but
half.
a half.
Hmm.
So, if it's someone who has been running fairly consistently, they
Yeah.
could do, like, 12 weeks before would be probably, like, the shortest.
Okay.
Maybe if it's, like, a higher level athlete, like, 8 weeks
Hmm.
would be, but, like, that's someone who kinda like how I was training last year, like, doing substantial amount of mileage per week,
Yeah.
uh, for me, consistently, and it's not like we have to build up anything.
Okay.
But if we have
And
to, like, build, then it's gonna be longer.
well, and would I be correct that usually this conversation around feeling unmotivated, not more often than not, but it's when it's coming up with some level of consistency, that doesn't tend to necessarily be your higher level athlete? Or
No,
am I off track on
you
that?
are correct, yeah.
I am. Okay. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's usually, like, the people who have been training consistently for a longer,
Mhm.
it I'll see and they'll bring up, like, low motivation, but it doesn't usually derail
Yeah.
training.
Yeah,
It's like
that's
maybe they miss a day or 2 and they're like, "Oh, I just really, like I just couldn't do it. I was really unmotivated."
yeah.
But more often than not with those athletes, I'll see, like, on an easy run, they're like, "This felt really bad. I was not motivated, but I did something." I'm like, "Yep, that's all I can ask of you."
Yeah, which I think that's even that's even a point that I wanna make sure doesn't get skipped is there's an understanding that some days are going to suck, and
Oh,
there's
yeah,
an
especially
underst
with running.
Yeah. Yeah, well, for me, that's almost every day. But, yeah, I think there's this understanding that that's going to happen, and also I think that's where the benefit of a coach can be really, really helpful, especially a coach who understands that sometimes you're just like you as the coach are just going to be the sounding board so that the
Mhm.
person can know, like, hey, it's cool for me to just sometimes I just want to moan and complain and whine
Yeah.
just so I can get it out that I just want someone else to know that I'm not enjoying that today and it
Yeah.
sucks And also, I'm aware that you received my feedback and you also are not about to do anything different about it. You just know this is
Yeah.
part of the process
Yeah.
and we'll live to fight another day and I'll probably be fine tomorrow. But today I just want to let you know I'm not feeling that motivated. Like I'm not even looking for a pep talk or anything like that. I'm just not feeling it
Yeah.
today. Okay. So let's say that it's your person who's, let's say, 12-ish weeks out. So you build
Mhm.
that 12-week plan for the spring race, like the spring half that they've got going on.
Yeah.
So is the plan, generally speaking, is the plan
Yeah.
that you write for 12 weeks, is the 12-week plan that you know is going to need to be executed over the winter any
Mhm.
different with average weekly volume, excuse me, from a 12-week plan planning for, say, like a summer race in the
Same distance?
same, yeah, same distance, like average weekly mileage like the same? You generally write it with the same average weekly mileage no matter the season. And I'm asking this basically because I wonder, okay, if I find more often than not that my athletes, like at this particular level, like who have this particular type of lifestyle, whatever, tend to not tend to go through like longer periods or longer bouts of being unmotivated and like not really feeling like running in the cold,
Mhm.
is there an adjustment with that plan in advance versus, well, it's pretty much, they're in a sunny climate or whatever, so they may not face that. I'm not sure if I'm asking that in a way that makes sense.
I think you are. I don't make adjustments based on season. It's usually
Okay.
based on distance.
Okay.
And like a half marathon, I feel like depending on your goal,
Hmm.
obviously, like you can get away with a lot more,
Hmm.
or you can get away with a lot less, I should say, of running, because it's a shorter distance. But like where I
I love that a half is a shorter distance.
yeah.
These are
Well,
these are
I work with
hilarious.
ultra athletes, so like
Yeah.
where I see the biggest struggles are those who want to run a spring marathon or ultra, and then like w- we don't have wiggle room to like not do these long runs.
Yeah.
Like you have to do your long runs, you
Yeah.
know? Like maybe we don't do as many as I planned at the start, but like we can't skip long runs every single week because you don't want to run in the cold on the weekend.
Mm.
Like then you shouldn't sign up for a spring race.
Man, that's such a good such a good point too.
It's yeah, it's hard because then like the obviously the other common season of racing is fall.
Mhm.
Similarly, a lot of people hate running in the heat. And I'm like, if you're running a marathon, you have to run long runs at some point in the year, you know?
It's like pick a
Like
struggle, Sarah. Yeah.
yeah,
Sorry,
yeah, like
Sarah, whoever Sarah is.
yeah, so but yeah, it's
Hmm.
usually like the longer distances are where I see the motivation dips more because like I mean it's really hard to get out for a 4 hour run if you're training for an ultra and it's 20 degrees and snowing,
Yeah. Okay.
but
So there's a part of me that wonders respectfully, what
yeah.
what weather were you expecting?
Yeah. Well, okay, so we've talked about this before and I've talked about it on my podcast too.
Mm.
People think about when the race is, they don't think about what they're training through leading up to the race,
Mm.
which I
You could take
tried.
you could take that same thing and talk about going through fat loss phases.
Oh, I believe that, yeah. Yeah. So I try to
Oh,
like
yeah.
when people are choosing races, I try to be like, "Are you sure? You sure you wanna like you're gonna be doing this at this time of the year." So take that into consideration when you make this choice. Um, some of them just sign up for races and then tell me after, and I'm just like, "All right, well, here we go."
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's I yeah, there's such a parallel there with having a targeted event that
Yep.
someone wants to lean out a bit for, uh, look their best, that sort of a thing. And then when you like back into it, So when you start with the end in mind and then you
Yep.
back into it, it's like, okay, well, I remember working with somebody before who was, it was around, gosh, I just remember whatever they had going on was right around the beginning of the school year, the kids' school year.
Mhm.
So that would have been like late August-ish, late August, early September.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to do like a quick and dirty fat loss. They wanted like something that was more like methodical
Mm.
sort of
Okay.
approach. So quick and dirty, like just a general example of quick and dirty would be we go somewhere with like between 4 to 6 weeks,
Mm.
and we bring calories down like probably an average of, let's say, like 500 calories per day, like
Yeah.
bring that down on
Yeah.
average. Whereas like a mild, like slow, methodical approach would be somewhere in like maybe like 200 ish, 2 to 300,
Yeah.
I'd say. Like that'd be on the lower end. And so they were like, yeah, I definitely don't want to do like a quick, I don't even consider that to be a crash diet really, because a crash diet would be like going down to like nothing, like
Yeah.
immediately, like 100 to 0 real quick.
Yeah.
Um, but they wanted to do something that was a little bit more like quote unquote, sustainable. Um, and whatever they had was going on, like new school year. So, which meant it was going to happen near the end of the summer. So I
Mhm.
was like, okay, cool. Like, they're going through all this stuff. They're like, here's what I'm really looking for. They're very clear about the destination, just like you identified. Like, this is the running event that I want to go. I already got my
Yep.
plane tickets. I know what outfit I'm going to wear, like all this good stuff. I already signed up for the photographer at the finish line. Like, I'm good. And it was the same sort of thing, and it like go through all this stuff. And then I was like, okay, cool. So if we're basically looking at about like a 12-ish week phase, so a 12-week phase where it's maybe, like 4 days deficit wise, then 3 days at maintenance per week, like that sort of thing, like methodical approach. I'm like, cool. So if that thing is happening, let's say like mid-August, that means, so we got July to August, then go back, that's June to July, then go back, and that's May to June. So we basically need to start a little bit before Memorial Day. Cool?
Yeah.
And they're like, ooh, so about that. I'm like, yeah, well, okay. Well, because they're like, well, we usually have these events around Memorial Day because there's the barbecue and this and that and the other. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Then they're
4th
like,
of
well,
July.
yep. And then they're like, well, then
Vacation.
yeah, the 4th of July. Then there was like somebody's graduation parties, like making the
Ah, yes.
circuit, like right around there. Then like summertime, they usually have like a big family like get together trip and this other
Yeah.
thing. And I'm like, well, we can work around events. Like those are different events. Like you've
Mhm.
described 7 events. It wasn't even that many.
Yeah.
I'm like, you've described 7 events. That's fine. Got to keep it like fairly like no wiggle room outside of those 7 events over 3 months.
Yeah.
Like we could totally handle that. And they're like, yeah, but I'm like, was there a thought that you do actually have to go through the phase before you get to the thing? And they were like, nah, to be honest with you, I didn't really think about that at all. No, like clearly. So let's like
Yeah.
back it up. And we actually decided to do the quick and dirty
That makes sense.
instead. And it worked out
Yeah.
phenomenally well. But
Good.
that was kind of the thing. So you kind of, same thing that you're kind of talking about with looking at understanding like whether it's super cold weather or super hot weather and whatnot. Like it's kind of like the running in the winter is
Mhm.
the version of dieting when it's really nice outside
Yeah.
and there's
Yeah. The hard thing
events
with
like
running
party
is
season.
yeah. The hard thing with running is there's not a quick and dirty option.
No.
You know?
Well, I mean, you could
I
try
mean,
it, but you're gonna
yeah.
crash.
I will not recommend it for anyone.
You're like 0
I
stars.
I've
Do not
I've
recommend.
known plenty of people not close to me who have done it. You see them online. They're like, "Oh, I ran this marathon with no training." I'm just like, "Congrats.
Yeah, you're
Good
like,
job."
I'll talk to you in 2 days.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I mean, those people don't usually they usually just wanna do one event and then they're done, which
Yeah,
makes sense if you're
which
not
is
gonna train.
fine. Yeah.
Yeah, which is fine. But yeah.
Well, any particular, so are there any particular like tactics or things that you try, or yeah, like what certain things you might, a couple things you might pull out of your back pocket to try to switch things up a little bit, or I don't know whether it's like timing or
Well, I
buy a
mean,
new outfit. I don't know.
well, regardless of time of year, like the benefit of having a coach is like I work with everyone's schedule and then like we
Mm,
build the plan around the schedule like we've talked about before. So like we can do that in the winter too to like maximize on the days when there's more time to go out in the warmest time of day kind of thing, which you know, tends to be people's weekends or days off
mm,
if they don't work a typical Monday through Friday 9 to 5 kind of gig. Um, and then similar to what we said before, like I still am pulling out the morning card, like try to get it done in the morning. Like
okay.
if, especially when as a coach you can see the excuses when it's pushed to the end of the day, it's not happening. Like
Yeah.
I can see that happening many times in a row. And that's when I pull out the morning card. I'm like, I know not everyone likes training in the morning, but you're not getting it done when you want to get it done.
Yeah. Might as
So
well just get it over with.
yeah. Or like recommended they schedule it in because sometimes that's the issue. It's just like, oh, I have a concept of a plan of when I'm going to run today. You know?
Oh, if you know, you know.
Yeah. Versus like, I mean, not everyone has to be like me, obviously, but we've talked about I religiously use my calendar.
Yes, you
Like I
do.
will block off the times when I'm gonna do things.
And color
And that
code
isn't
it.
just I color code it. That
Yep.
isn't to say I don't move things around.
Mhm.
Being my own coach, I had don't have the accountability of someone else telling me I have to do something at a certain time. Um, but like if that works for you, that's a great strategy. Just like or even just kind of what you were talking about, being cognizant of where you are with your habits. It's like, what is getting in the way of you getting in your training? And then
Yeah.
how do we solve those hurdles? A lot of times it does come back to like, get it done first thing. Cause it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I worked later than I expected and then had to clean my house or I had to make dinner for the kids or then it got dark. It's like,
I was very
like
surprised that the sun went down.
yeah.
I did not expect that that would happen.
Yeah. So then a lot of it or it's like, "Oh, I planned to run in the morning, but I just kept hitting snooze," and then we talk about, like, what are you doing the night before? Are you
Hmm.
scrolling until midnight? Like, what time are you getting in bed? What are you doing? How are you spending your time?
Yeah.
So
I think that idea of putting it in your calendar, which is something I've been like an evangelist for I don't know how long, is so underrated and
yeah.
often very much overlooked. And
Mhm.
it's not just about putting it in your calendar, although this I think is helpful. It's not just about being able to visualize, okay, here is the time block that I'm creating for this. So you actually see where it's going to happen. It's
Mhm.
also for me, it's also the act of when I put it there, then I had some intention for why I put it there. So then when I have to take that step of then deleting it or moving it,
Yeah.
it's just like there's a connection to, okay, well, why am I about to move this thing? Why am I about to delete this thing? Because I've definitely done that before.
Yeah.
Like, why am I about to do this? Why am I about to do something different than what I said I would do? Like the whole because I said I would. Okay, well, why am I moving this?
Yeah.
So I think that that's something that can be helpful. So this also goes in line with a conversation I was having actually with somebody from the reset program. So in
Oh.
the reset program, one of the things that was that a person asked about in their check-in was just talking about, over the over this season, it's colder than normal where we
Mhm.
live, and when it's the weekend and I'm going to work out from home because the way that the partnership works, like in their house, like basically during the week, like basically they just swap like who's watching the kids during when, basically.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So over the weekend, like typically this person would work out like in the garage, and they're like,
Mhm.
it's just just totally different vibe when it's cold, and like different things like that. I'm like,
Can
yep,
confirm.
yeah, right. Yeah, and it wasn't really necessarily always an option to just go to the gym instead, just because of
Yeah.
the way that things are set up, which is important to them too. Like it's important to keep that agreement. And I was like, I don't so here's something that I've done before, and um this one's like for the parents. I have had times where I've told Mace, like I've verbalized, yeah, tomorrow morning I'm gonna work out at home. So I
Mhm.
have, for those who aren't watching, like I have a home gym like literally behind me, and it's got
Yeah.
plenty of equipment and whatnot. I don't prefer to work out at home. Like I prefer to go into the gym, and also there are particular days where it just makes more sense for me to train at home based on my schedule and anything else that's going on. So
Yeah.
there are times where I've basically used him as like my accountability, even though I know he's not going to be up at 5:30 in the morning to be like, Dad, why are you not working out or whatnot? It's
Yeah.
just the simple act of verbalizing to him, like, yeah, I'm gonna get up and get a lift in before I take you to school in the morning, or I'm gonna get up and walk for 20 minutes on the treadmill down here before I wake you up for school, or before I take you to school in the morning. And there's been a couple times where he's even looked at me like, okay, thanks for telling me. Like, I don't really get, like, literally has looked at me, because sometimes we have the same facial expressions. He's
Yeah.
just looked at me like, okay, thanks, Dad. Also, what I was sharing with this person in the program, because they have two really young kids, is I was like, I don't know, man. Like, you tell me how it feels when you verbalize to one of your kids that you're going to do something, and you're not expecting them to hold you responsible. But then in the morning, when you're about to hit that snooze button, you remember, I told my kid I was going to do this, and now I'm about to not do this. So I'm essentially
Yeah.
like modeling for them that I don't really keep my promises. And some people might call that like shame or whatever. I look, I was even telling him, I'm like, some people are going to get this and some people won't.
Yeah.
It's just, I just imagine one day, even though he looks at me with the weird side eye, that he may be like, hey, did you work out this
Mm.
morning? And
Yeah.
I don't want to have to be like, oh, you were listening? I didn't do that, you know?
Mhm.
So I'll even just verbalize it just for accountability, which is, so that I don't know if that possibly might help somebody who's out there.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? I know that it's tough for me to get up like 1 or 2 days out of the week. It's a little bit more of a struggle than others. So what can you
Mhm.
do to, I call it like putting yourself on the hook. So what can
Yeah.
you do? Is there a friend that you can say like, hey, I'm going to text you tomorrow that I got up, or if I don't, then there's some sort of like thing that I have to do, and I really would rather not have to do that thing, so I'll just go for my run instead.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So
Yeah.
just throwing those out there as some potential ideas too, from the aspect of just working out, like getting work in when you really would rather be doing something else.
Yeah. Yeah. And that reminded me of another strategy that can work, especially for like if you do have to go on the treadmill and you hate the treadmill,
Mhm.
is saving your favorite shows and podcasts
Yes.
for only that time.
Yep.
Because, like, I've been on the bike so much because that's when I watch my reality TV.
Yes.
And, like, I I usually start I don't I'll preface this with that I don't like biking that much.
Yeah.
It's not that enjoyable to me. I start, I'm like, okay, I'll do like a half hour, but I'll be watching an episode and then I'll keep checking. I'm like, okay, how much longer? Like, okay, there's like 15 minutes left. So like I might as well just finish this episode. And then I don't pay for ad-free
Hmm.
services. So then that adds on like 5 more minutes. And then by the end, I've gotten like 45 to 55 minutes, depending on the length of the episode.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that wasn't so bad. I just watched TV the whole time.
Yeah,
And same with like
that's a
podcasts.
good one. Yeah, that's a very good one. I think in I think I remember hearing something similar to that with like Atomic Habits, and I think James Clear. I'll attribute it to him, but I don't know if it was him who was trying to come up with this. He talked about somebody who had this idea of a treadmill, like linking up the treadmill where the device that they were watching only worked as the treadmill was moving.
Oh, I feel like I've heard of that. Maybe
Yeah.
it's a bike?
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know. I thought yeah, I might be making this up, so I don't but you know what I'm
I don't
talking
know.
about though. But
I
that
do
would
know.
be yeah, that would be something where it's like it only like the conveyor belt has to be moving or the treadmill
Yeah,
belt has to be moving or the pedals on the bike are what powers. That's what it was. It was like the pedals power
yeah.
the streaming basically. And if you stop pedaling, it stops streaming. So I think that would actually be like a
That would
pretty good
be
idea.
great.
Something
Yeah.
something I've used before too is there's something that so say for example I want to buy you're gonna laugh I want to buy another T-shirt. Um, let's say yeah
Number 200.
right. Let's say that I want to buy a T-shirt and it costs $20,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna do a 10-week training program. And I
Okay.
know that once so basically it's like well I'm not going to allow myself to buy that thing until I've completed my 10-week training program and I put $2 into like the box that I'm going to use or whatever, the account, whatever. I deposit $2 every time I do like that one long run each week,
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
something like that. So if it's something you were planning to already do, or if it's, you can have a little delayed gratification and also you kind
Ooh.
of marry two things together. So that's something I've done something similar to that before. I think it was actually a pair of shoes that I wanted to get on eBay or something like that.
Ooh.
Yeah. And so I was like, well, I could get them now, or I could make that as like an incentive. And so just take the number of weeks. Like I wanted to stick to a particular training program or stick to a particular habit. So I was like, well,
Yeah.
each time I complete that habit, then I get that dopamine hit of moving the money from this account over to that account or taking the $2 and putting it in this jar or whatever. And then, because I think that it's helpful if you are going to do something similar to that,
Mhm.
where it's like, because I think that's pretty common, or not pretty common, but I don't think that's out of the ordinary that somebody says, like, hey, I'm going to reward myself for accomplishing this particular goal. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
a missed step along the way is to give yourself like the check mark on the box or some dopamine hit along the way too. So that's why it was cool
Yeah.
to be able to do like, okay, I moved $2 from here into savings. Just moved it around for no reason whatsoever. Like PayPal is really good for that. You can just create a PayPal and just like move the money over in PayPal. And
Yeah.
and you can even do like a little note to yourself, like week 1 out of 10, week 2 out of 10, week 3 out of
Mm.
10. And then at the end of it, it's like, okay, well, it's all there. So that's a little random idea too, if somebody's down with that sort of thing. So
Yeah. That reminded me of another idea
mm,
that doesn't work for everyone. It really depends where you live. Um, but if you can combine your run with, like, going to the store or running an errand,
mm,
or, like, I have one athlete who she once a week she doesn't really have time to run, so she does a run commute, and that works really well.
oh,
Yeah, she does have showers where she works at a university, so
yeah,
that's,
yeah,
kind of an important thing, but, like,
hmm
if you can combine anything like that sometimes I find it easier to run if I have a purpose. Like, I've run to the library before to drop a book off or, like, to pick a book up,
that's
and it's
good.
like
Yeah.
yeah, it's like I can make it, like, 2 miles if I want to get there,
Hmm.
so then, like, there and back is, like, 4 miles, that's a good run, um, that kind of thing, or, like, run to
Interesting.
your friend's house, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Having a purpose can really help rather than just like, "Oh, I'm gonna go run my normal round, then end back at my house."
Right. Right. Yeah. I like
Yeah,
that. Okay.
yeah.
Anything else on this topic?
Yeah, the final thing I'll
Yeah.
say, this is more prevalent to well, I guess it could be winter or summer,
Mm.
um, is there are times when people like to do other sports where we do take some running away to take advantage of the time of year, like skiing right now is an obvious
Mhm.
one. I have a lot of skiers. I do have some who like cycling, and that tends to pick up in the summer. So, like, we can utilize the cross training people like to do. Swimming is another one. Got some people who love swimming. We can incorporate it to like replace some runs, supplement runs, whatever it may be. Replacing like at least one run can be good, especially if someone dreads training throughout the winter to like, well, on this one day you get to do that one thing you really like to do and you don't have to, face the elements of running. And then on the other
Yeah.
days, it makes it a little easier to do it because like I don't have to do this 5 days a week. I do it 4 days a week now, kind of thing. And then the other 2 days, maybe I'm doing my indoor swim, outdoor ski, and really just like doing something I enjoy doing in the elements or inside versus forcing myself to run.
Yeah, I like that little cross training action.
Yeah, cross
Yeah.
training is great. The one thing I will say about that is if we're replacing a run with cross training, I highly recommend that it's not too easy. Like
Okay.
if you're going to sit on the bike, don't just sit there and move your legs for 20 minutes kind of thing,
Yeah.
like
Have some
do it with
intention
a
and some
purpose.
purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
where I do think that things, so bringing it over um, to the lifting realm, I guess, for lack of a better
Mhm.
way to put it, that's where I do think that inserting things like some classes,
Mm.
like like a dance class, any of the Les Mills classes, a spin class, like just implementing
Yeah.
something that you have to put on the books and show up for, or something that's a little bit different, like a boot camp type thing, like just whatever. That's where I do think that those things can be really, really helpful, especially
Mhm.
like when I'm bringing it over into my realm. It's like folks where they're lifting like 4 days a week, and then they typically will do like a zone 2 session and then a hit session, or they'll lift like 3 days a week and then do like 2 to 3 cardio days, that sort of a thing. And
Yeah.
typically what they normally would do is go for a run. Like they would just
Mhm.
go for like a 3 mile run, like something along those lines, like on average for 1 or 2 of their cardio days. And they do find sometimes, like when the weather's like not the greatest, and some of them sometimes will have like some sort of like kind of like a seasonal funk that they go through. That's when I
Yeah.
do encourage them, like, well, I just remember like when we first started working together, you were all about like these different classes and whatnot. And what we identified is just that based on the goals that you had, we needed to like flip what percentage of your training was that versus lifting. But,
Yeah.
at this point, why not, go to one of those classes? You've still got that friend group, you still enjoy it. Pickleball is like all the rage right now, like all the
That's
rage.
true. It
So,
is.
yes, I'm just like, why not? Why not give it a shot? And one of the really cool things about that is them being able to then see the carryover effect of what
Mm.
the focus on resistance training is now doing for
Yeah.
them in these other sports too, and these other modalities. So that's also been kind of a cool thing too, to get a message from one of them that's like, yeah, I actually signed up for this random dance class, and man, I felt like I was in great control of my body, because that's one of the cool things about
Mm.
lifting weights too, is it really can teach you a lot about understanding like moving your body in space and range of motion and just all that stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, totally agree with you. I think that's a great point.
Yeah. Yeah. And if anyone is like, well, how do I know if I'm going hard enough in cross training? What I do is I wear my chest heart rate monitor and I just try to get my heart rate up. Not quite to running because I usually, well, I guess if I'm on the bike, I don't try to get it as high as running just because the impact element isn't there and it's harder to get up. I'm not a cyclist, so it's harder to get my heart rate
Mm,
up without like being quite a high effort, for an extended period of time.
mm,
But I monitor my heart rate and try to keep it high enough where it's not like I'm out for a walk kind of thing or like a very easy effort. And then if I'm ellipticaling, then I try to get it more comparable with like an easy run. But that can really help just like being cognizant of where your heart rate is and you can kind of tell, if it's hard enough or not.
yeah. Agreed. Totally
Yeah,
agree. All right. Well, I think we have come to the end of this episode.
I know. Yeah.
Cool.
I think that's perfect timing. And we have to go watch the Super Bowl. So,
Yes. All right.
all
Well,
right.
You want to tell the folks where to find us?
Yep. As always, one, you can leave a rating and review wherever you're listening. If you're on Spotify, you can also leave a comment on this episode or any episode you listen to. You can follow us on Instagram at Lifting Running Living Pod, or you can email us at liftingrunningLivingPod@gmail.com.
All right, cool. And with that, that is going to wrap up episode number 45 of Lifting, Running, and Living. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We appreciate it. And we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.